नमस्कार। अधिवक्ता परिषद हरियाणा द्वारा प्रस्तुत जस्टिस एन के सांगी मेमोरियल लेक्चर सीरीज में मैं उदित गर्ग एडवोकेट आज आप सभी अधिवक्ता बंधुओं का और अपने दर्शकों का स्वागत करता हूं। आज जस्टिस एन के सांगी मेमोरियल लेक्चर सीरीज का थर्ड लेक्चर है, जिसका टॉपिक है स्पेसिफिक रिलीफ एक्ट। स्पेसिफिक रिलीफ एक्ट का इन शॉर्ट हम उसको SRA भी बोलते हैं। तो स्पेसिफिक रिलीफ एक्ट इज अ एक्ट which provides for various remedies for the performance of contract to either of the parties. So ये एक बहुत ही संक्षिप्त में मैं स्पेसिफिक रिलीफ एक्ट के बारे में बताया है। इसी को बताने आज हमारे स्पेशल गेस्ट, आज हमारे कीनोट स्पीकर ऑनरेबल जस्टिस श्री अनिल खेत्रपाल जी, ऑनरेबल जज पंजाब और हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट चंडीगढ़ से मौजूद हैं। जस्टिस खेत्रपाल का वेलकम इंट्रोडक्शन देने के लिए मैं हमारे उपाध्यक्ष श्री रविंदर बुधवार जी को बुलाना चाहूंगा, जो अपना इंट्रोडक्शन जस्टिस खेत्रपाल जी का देंगे।
नमस्कार, मैं अधिवक्ता परिषद हरियाणा कार्यकारिणी का बहुत आभारी हूं जो मेरे को वेलकम और इंट्रोडक्शन का मौका दिया। मैं अपनी तरफ से वह अधिवक्ता परिषद हरियाणा व सभी अधिवक्ता बंधुओं की तरफ से माननीय न्यायाधीश श्री अनिल खेत्रपाल जी का स्वागत करता हूं, जिन्होंने हमारा इस लेक्चर सीरीज में निमंत्रण स्वीकार किया है। इनके इंट्रोडक्शन के बारे में मैं कुछ बातें आपके समक्ष संक्षिप्त रूप में रखता हूं। माननीय न्यायाधीश 19 नवंबर 1964 को कुरुक्षेत्र में अधिवक्ता श्री HP क्षेत्रपाल के घर पैदा हुए। इनके पिताजी कुरुक्षेत्र में ही वकालत करते थे और अब वो अपने माननीय न्यायाधीश जी के साथ रहते हैं। इनकी शुरू की स्कूलिंग कुरुक्षेत्र में हुई, गीता सीनियर सेकेंडरी स्कूल कुरुक्षेत्र में। उसके बाद इनकी ग्रेजुएशन और विधि में स्नातक कुरुक्षेत्र यूनिवर्सिटी से की। विधि स्नातक कंप्लीट करने के बाद माननीय क्षेत्रपाल जी 1987 में पंजाब एंड हरियाणा बार काउंसिल में एज एन एडवोकेट एनरोल हुए। शुरू में कुछ दिन वकालत कुरुक्षेत्र करने के बाद 1988 में पंजाब एंड हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट में शिफ्ट हो गए और यहाँ पे उन्होंने जस्टिस VK बाली रिटायर्ड चीफ जस्टिस के साथ ऑफिस ज्वाइन किया। कुछ साल वकालत करने के बाद इन्होंने 1991 में अपनी वकालत शुरू कर दी और उसके इनका जो स्पेशलाइजेशन, उनकी मेहनत और कर्मठता को देखते हुए ऑनरेबल पंजाब एंड हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट ने इनको 2014 में सीनियर एडवोकेट डेजिग्नेट किया। उसके इनके सारी मेहनत और सिविल लॉ और दूसरे फील्ड में स्पेशलाइजेशन होने के बाद इनको 10 जुलाई 2017 को माननीय पंजाब एंड हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट में एज ए जज नियुक्त किया और 10/7/2017 से ये अपनी सेवाएं एज ए जज पंजाब एंड हरियाणा हाई कोर्ट में दे रहे हैं। माननीय जज साहब का जो स्पेशलाइज्ड फील्ड है वो सिविल लॉ है। सिविल लॉ में सारे जितने इंक्लूडिंग लॉज आते हैं, रेंट लॉ, कमर्शियल लॉ, ETC, वो सब में इनकी बहुत ज्यादा मास्टरी थी। और जज होते हुए जब ये सिविल रोस्टर में बैठे हैं, सिविल रोस्टर में इन्होंने कई जो क्रिटिकल क्वेश्चंस थे, जो प्रपोजिशन थी, उनको बड़े सिंपल वे में डिफाइन करके उनको लॉ सेटल कर दिया। अब अगर कोई भी जजमेंट वो हम प्रेजेंट करते हैं किसी भी अदालत में, वो स्टेट वे वो केस उसी वे में डिसाइड किया जाता है। माननीय क्षेत्रपाल जी क्रिमिनल रोस्टर में भी बैठे हैं, जबकि सिविल की वकालत करते हुए क्रिमिनल रोस्टर को भी इन्होंने इतनी अच्छी तरह से हैंडल किया। उसमें भी नेगोशिएबल इंस्ट्रूमेंट एक्ट और NDPS एक्ट में इन्होंने कई ऐसी जजमेंट दी हैं जो आज लैंडमार्क जजमेंट हैं। और मैं माननीय जज साहब का दोबारा से मैं वेलकम करता हूं और धन्यवाद करता हूं अपनी तरफ से और अपनी अधिवक्ता परिषद की तरफ से। और मैं अब माननीय न्यायाधीश को आमंत्रित करता हूं कि वो अपना उद्बोधन शुरू करें।
Thank you, Mr. Udit Garg and Mr. Budhwar. I am grateful to the organizers who have given me opportunity to come and discuss with you an act which is very close to my heart. Mr. Udit Garg in the beginning has said that this is a act which deals with specific performance. In fact, this is not the act which deals with specific performance act only, specific performance of the contract only. It is backbone of most of the civil cases. Once we examine all the provisions, you will all realize that all the civil suits, most of civil suits, not all the civil suits, most of civil suits are filed under the Specific Relief Act only. If any one of you has ever thought of that, if there was no Specific Relief Act, how the civil suit could be filed? Now, let me just elaborate, then you will realize how what I am saying is correct. But there are two caveats which I would like to introduce. One is that I am not an expert. I am only a student of law, as everybody is. Law is such a vast field that nobody can be master of law. Everyone is student of law, and everyone should remain student of law. Two, whatever I am saying is my opinion, and I cannot claim that I am correct only. There can be different interpretations. Everyone has his own views, and that is the beauty of the law. Now let us first examine Section 4. Section 4 says that there can be enforcement of civil rights. Civil rights means whatever rights under the civil law are there, those can be enforced, not penal laws. That is first caveat which the Act envisages. Now, let us go to next provision, which is Section 5. Section 5, if we carefully read, Section 5 deals with suit for possession. Possession is, as everybody knows, if a person who is owner, who is entitled, and he's not in possession, then he has to file a suit for possession. That is governed by Section 5 of the Specific Relief Act. Even if you are seeking partition and thereby seeking possession, even then you are seeking possession only, and therefore also Section 5 would govern. Now, next provision is Section 6. Section 6 is based on when you have been dispossessed or your client has been dispossessed forcibly, and he is claiming restoration of possession without any right. He in such suit which is of summary nature, the plaintiff is not required to establish that he has, apart from possessory title, any other right. The difference between Section 5 and Section 6 is that Section 5 is a detailed suit which is filed on the basis of a right, title, or interest. Section 6 is where it is filed only on the basis of the fact that I have been dispossessed or client has been dispossessed within 6 months from the date of filing a suit forcibly. Now, let us go further. Section 7 and Section 8 are suits which are filed for getting possession or recovery of movable property. 5 and 6 was dealing with immovable property. Section 7 and 8 are dealing with movable property. Movable property includes even suit for recovery of any articles, suit for recovery of property, movable property like jewelry, like vehicle, anything it can be. This is one part of specific relief act which deals with suit for possession, for immovable property, as well as suit for possession of movable property, which includes even money, because money is also an estate. Estate is movable property. Money being movable property is one is entitled to recover. Now, if we go further, we enter into chapter 2. Chapter 2 is no doubt with regard to specific performance of contract, or we normally say specific performance of the agreement to sell. Specific performance of the agreement to sell or such suits occupy large part of the litigation these days, because if the rates increase, the sellers become dishonest, they don't perform. If the rates come down, then the purchasers do not come forward. I must clarify here that suit for specific performance of contract or agreement to sell can be filed by any of the party of the contract. Normal impression is that it can be fully filed by the intended purchaser. This is not a correct impression. I will just explain to you why it can be filed. Suit for specific performance can be filed even by the person who is intended seller or a vendor, because he can also seek specific performance of the agreement to sell he has entered into and force the plaintiff to come and execute the sale deed. Of course, if he doesn't, then the agreement would come to an end, but such suit can be filed. You will just examine section 15 subsection A or clause A of the act, which talks of that any party can file. Now let us go to the next section. Section 6 is section 11 is with regard to specific performance of the contracts with respect to trust, which means that if the trust is a vendor or a vendee or intended vendor or a vendee, the suit against the trust or suit against by the trust can be filed. Now, next very, very important section is section 12. Section 12 is prohibiting part performance. Section 12, subsection 1 says that no suit for specific performance of part of the contract is maintainable. But there are 3 more subsections which are in the nature of exceptions. If one has to discuss section 12, it will take almost full session. We'll elaborate it later on, but section 12, subsection 1 talks of absolute bar, but subsection 2, 3, and 4 talk of different eventualities when the part performance can be allowed. Now, next very important section is with regard to next section is section 13. Normally, we see that the plea is taken in a suit for specific performance of the contract, that the person or the vendor who had entered into an agreement to sell was not the owner. That is not a correct defense, because section 13 talks of that a plaintiff is entitled to file a suit against a person who may not be having a perfect title. Even if the vendor has acquired title subsequently, even then the suit is maintainable. So therefore, on the date of entering into an agreement to sell, the title of the proposed vendor may be imperfect, but if he subsequently acquires an absolute title or his title becomes perfect, then the suit is maintainable. So therefore, I am only saying that please be careful while taking defense, because it is very necessary, according to me, that before drafting a written statement or a plaint or pleadings, it is necessary that we must examine the entire scheme of the act, read the act carefully. That is very, very important, because unless we read the act and we take a wrong defense, then it becomes difficult later on to continue with that. Now, next important thing is, an important section is section 14. 14 provide for that the contracts which are not specifically enforceable. Why this has been provided is that all the contracts are not specifically enforceable. There are 2-3 exceptions which have been provided, and if I can point out just as a passing reference, section 14 earlier was a elaborate section. Now, by way of amendment, it has been curtailed and circumscribed. Now, 3 exceptions have been provided. One is if a party has already obtained substituted performance of the contract in accordance with provisions of section 20. Second is where the specific performance involves continuous duty which the court cannot supervise, like service contracts. Of course, I must clarify here that service contracts which are governed by statutory rules, the suit can be filed for specific performance, but the contracts, service contracts which are not governed by statutory rules, that is, it is either not governed by Industrial Dispute Act or it is not governed by government framed rules, then there is no specific performance. Only thing one can do is he can seek, the employee can seek damages. Now, third exception is, third and fourth exception is that if the contract is dependent upon personal qualification of the parties, which the court cannot enforce. And fourth is if the contract is in the nature of determinable, if it's determinable, that is, it finishes with the passage of time. Now, there are certain sections which have been added now by recent amendment, which has come into effect in 2018. We'll deal with it, examine it later on. Section 15 deals with who can seek specific performance. Now, if you see subsection clause A of section 15, it talks of any party thereto. This is what I was observing when I started with this chapter of specific performance, that any party can file a suit. Now, with this pandemic, likelihood is that the prices would fall. The intended purchasers would not come forward to purchase. And if a vendor comes to you that the purchaser is not coming forward, you can advise him to file a suit for specific performance and get a decree. Now, there is next section is section 16. 16 talks of what are the bars which have been provided and in what eventualities you cannot seek specific performance. Section 16, subsection 6 is a very, very important provision. Rather, I would say was a very, very important provision, and it continues to be so, because it talks of that if a suit for specific performance has been filed, the plaintiff was before amendment required to plead and prove that he was always ready and willing to perform his part of the contract. Of course, by later amendment in 2018, the word ever has been taken away. That means now the plaintiff is only required to prove that he was always ready and willing to perform. But importance of subsection clause C of section 16 still continues. Now, next provision which would be relevant is section 18, which talks of non-enforcement of the contracts except with variation, where the plaintiff files a suit, but the defendant pleads a variation, and the court comes to a conclusion that no, the original contract was changed, or there was some variation. Then the court can only order specific performance of the contract which has been changed. Now, next provision is, which is again very, very important, is section 19. 19 deals with reliefs which can be granted not only against the party who has contracted, but even against certain other parties, which includes persons who have purchased the property. Like if after entering into an agreement to sell, the proposed vendor has sold the property or transferred the property to someone else, the suit for specific performance can also be filed by impleading the subsequent transferee as party, and then you can take seek relief. Similarly, now by recent amendment, even limited liability partnership has been included, that if it is amalgamated in another limited liability partnership or in a company which is successor in trust, the specific performance can be sought against them also. Now, next provision is section 20. 20 is with regard to substituted performance of the contract. Substituted performance is that if the court or the party does not find that feel that they need to get the suit get the contract specific perform, then they can seek substituted performance, like alternative for damages, return of earnest money. Normally, you all would have seen that there is a contract which says that double of the earnest money would be refunded. Then one can file a suit. Of course, there is a then you have, if you want double of the earnest money, then you are required to prove that how much damages you have suffered or how much loss you have suffered. That will be a separate topic which will be required to be discussed in detail. Now, next very important provision is section 21. 21 provides that when a suit for specific performance of the contract has been filed, the plaintiff can, in addition to the specific performance, seek compensation. Earlier, the words were either in addition to or in substitution of, but now by amendment, in substitution of has been deleted, so as to just clarify that while filing a suit for specific performance of the contract, if the proposed vendor has remained in possession of the property or you have suffered some other damages, you can file a suit, seek relief for use and occupation of the property, as well as for damages whatever you have suffered because of delay in performance. Now, next provision is section 21, which is again dealing, section 21 I have dealt with. Then section 22 is a very significant provision which provides that while filing a suit for specific performance of the contract, you can not only ask for possession, partition, refund of earnest money, etc. That means that a party while filing a suit for specific performance of the agreement to sell or a contract, is not required to file a separate suit of possession after the specific performance has been decreed. Similarly, if it is a joint property and it is partible by the civil court, then prayer for partition can also be made. Prayer for refund of earnest money can also be made. Now, next provision is with regard to liquidation of damages, not a bar to specific performance. As I have said that this is in continuation of section 22 and other provisions, because apart from specific performance, you can always seek damages. But only thing is that as per section 24, if the suit for specific performance of the agreement to sell has already been dismissed, then you cannot file a suit for claiming compensation for breach of the agreement. This provision has been introduced so as to reduce the multiplicity of the litigation. In other words, the object which was sought to be achieved by section 22, that is being achieved by saying that whatever you want to say or whatever relief you want to claim, you claim that in alternative in the first suit itself, that is for specific performance. Now this, with this we come to an end to the chapter which deals with specific performance. And as I told you in the beginning, that this is not the end of Specific Relief Act. Next chapter which deals is which is provided is rectification of the instruments. What is rectification? Suppose there is a contract in writing between A and B, but there is some mistake, or there is, because of fraud, some wrong thing has been incorporated, or there is an error. Any party can file a suit for rectification of that contract by saying that this is not what you intended, or there is a mutual mistake, or because of fraud, something wrong has been incorporated, which is not the correct situation. That means whenever there is a contract in which a clause has come, or there is some mistake, a clause has been inserted, or a clause has been inserted which was by fraudulent means, one can file a suit for rectification, which again would be governed by the Specific Relief Act only. Now, the next chapter is dealing with rescission of contracts. Rescission of contracts is in two parts. First part is dealing with rescission of contracts. That means cancellation or revocation of contract. Suppose two persons have entered into a contract. One person is saying that the contract is required to be rescinded. Then one can file a suit and say get rid of that contract by showing that whatever, like you would have seen that if on behalf of minor, if a guardian enters into a contract, then the minor, on attaining majority, can file a suit and claim that such contract is not in my interest and therefore it should be cancelled. It is voidable at my instance and therefore it should not be enforceable. Similarly, there can be different situation if the contract is not lawful, if the ultimate object of the contract is not permitted in law, then a party can file a suit. Now, next provision is with regard to rescission in certain circumstances of contracts for sale or lease of immovable property. This is with regard to contract of sale or lease or even mortgage. If contract has been entered, one of the person does not want that that should be specifically enforced, he can seek rescission thereof from the court. Now, next provision is section 29, which talks of that even an alternative prayer can be made for rescission of a contract in a suit for specific performance. Section 30 deals with that whenever the court is called upon to order rescission of the contract, the court would do justice and equity and restore the benefit. Like, as I have explained to you, that on behalf of minor, agreement to sell has been entered, and a minor has received, say, some earnest money, and subsequently says that I want to avoid this contract, then he would be required to refund the amount. That is what equity says. Now, with this we come to an end to chapter of rescission of the contracts, and switch over to chapter 5. Chapter 5 is a very, very important provision in Specific Relief Act. First section is section 31, which talks of or provides for cancellation of written instruments. What are written instruments? It can be a sale deed, it can be a gift, it can be a mortgage, it can be a lease deed, and so on, so on. So even a decree of the court. Now, if a party wants that such instrument must be cancelled or set aside, although the word used in section 31 is not set aside, but normally we use this word in common parlance. Now, section 31 talks of that if a person wants an instrument to be cancelled, revoked, or should be declared void, then he has to seek cancellation. This provision has to be examined with another section, which is section 34, which is again in this very chapter, which talks of suits filed for declaration. The difference between suit for declaration and suit for cancellation is very significant. Significance is not only with respect to payment of court fee, but also with respect to maintainability of the suit. If a individual is party to a instrument, then he cannot merely file a suit for declaration. He has to seek a cancellation thereof, or revocation thereof, or setting aside thereof. That's why he is made liable to pay ad valorem court fee on the price of the property. The significance is that in a suit for declaration, you are filing a suit for declaring that you are entitled to a legal character or to any right to any property, or a particular status. Now, in a suit for cancellation, You are not seeking any declaration. Of course, you can combine both the suits, but cancellation is an important provision which is usually ignored by everyone. Section 2031 should be utilized by the councils whenever it is required. Suppose a party comes to you and says that this is the contract which has been entered, or this is the sale deed which has been entered, and it is a result of fraud. Then you cannot just file a suit for declaration. You have to file a suit for setting aside or cancellation of that sale deed. That would be necessary, because if you merely restrict yourself to filing a suit for declaration, then tomorrow a court can object to it and that party would be in difficulty. Now, this is the distinction between 31 and 34, which I wanted to highlight. Now, let us see. Section 32 deals with that an instrument can be partially cancelled. Suppose a contract has been entered, but you are saying that only one clause is troubling you, or one clause was not what the parties intended, therefore it can be partially cancelled. And the court is not required, the party is not required to say that contract itself should be declared void or it should be cancelled. The party can say that this clause is bad. Similarly, Section 33 is again that restoration of benefits, that if you are asking for cancellation or you are asking for declaration, then you are required to restore that benefit. Now, there is one more thing which I need to point out with regard to Section 34. That is with regard to proviso to Section 34. Usually, the councils feel hassled when they are pointed out that a party was entitled to further relief, but it has not been sought. Please carefully read proviso to Section 34, which lays down that if a party is if a plaintiff is entitled to some further relief on same cause of action, then he must file. He must include that relief in that very suit for declaration, and if he does not, then his suit is liable to be dismissed. So please be careful. That would be very, very important, and that's why I have highlighted it. Now, Section 35 deals with the effect of declarations. Now, let us move to next chapter, which is chapter of dealing with injunctions. Please understand that all the suits for injunction, either temporary, permanent, perpetual, mandatory, are filed under the Specific Relief Act, under this very chapter. Look at Section 37. Deals with preventive relief. 36 deals with preventive relief. 37 temporary and perpetual injunction. 38 deals with perpetual injunctions. 39 deals with mandatory injunctions. So that's why I in the very beginning said that Specific Relief Act deals with, rather is the backbone of almost all the civil suits which are filed normally in the civil courts. Now, Section 40 is providing for damages in alternative. If the court is unable to grant you injunction, in an injunction suit, you can seek damages and the court is entitled to grant you damages. Section 41 again details out what are the situations when injunction is required to be refused or cannot be granted. And section 42 deals with injunctions to perform negative agreements. So that way, if you have now realized that suits for possession of immutable property, movable property, suits for specific performance of the agreement to sales, suits for rectification of instruments, suits for rescission of the contracts, cancellation of the contract, suits for setting aside instruments, suits for revocation of contracts, suits for declaration of any right, title, or interest or status, suits for injunctions are all governed by the Specific Relief Act. And this entire act is hardly, bare act I can say, is hardly of 21 pages. If one really examines or studies it carefully, one can easily get over and understand how the suits are, civil suits are filed. Now I'm switching my focus to the amendments made. By Amendment Act in 2018, which has come into force with effect from 19th September 2018, significant amendments have been made. First amendment is in section 6, which is a summary suit for possession. In this provision, a plaintiff who is not in actual possession but is in possession through someone else, and someone else is forcibly dispossessed, has been enabled to file the suit. Previously, this provision was not there. Then the significant, a very significant amendment is in section 10. Section 10 has been rather substituted, and the significant amendment is that initially, before the 2018 amendment, the relief of specific performance of the agreement to sell was discretionary, and repeatedly various provisions provided for that the court has a discretion, which has been now deleted, omitted, and all the suits which are filed after 19th September 2018, the court, once the agreement to sell is proved, once it is proved that the plaintiff was always ready and willing to perform, then the court has no option but for to decree the suit. These are the significant amendment in section 10 as well as in section 20, which has again been substituted. Now, as I said that section 14 has again been substituted, and previously there was long list of contracts which were not specifically enforceable. Now it has been restricted to only 4. Then another amendment is by inserting section 14A, capital A, which enables the court to engage experts and take their assistance so as to adjudicate the case. Section 15, there is an amendment with regard to limited liability partnership. Then section 16, there are significant amendments which I pointed out that initially the provision was that the plaintiff must plead and prove that he was always ready and willing. But now those words of pleading, that is, the word used is our means pleading only, that has been deleted and omitted in clause C of section 16, so as to make it convenient for the plaintiff and easy for the plaintiff to prove his case. Then section 19, again there is amendment with regard to limited liability partnership. Section chapter 2, even heading has been substituted, because earlier heading was discretion and power of the court. Now it is substituted performance of the contracts. So this is what I was pointing out, that by amendment the discretion has been taken away. Now there is a significant addition by section 20 capital A. It has been provided that no suit for injunction, no injunction can be granted by a court in a suit involving a contract relating to an infrastructure project specified in the schedule. A schedule has been added after the act, and the courts have specifically been prohibited from granting injunction, because ultimately if injunction is granted, it results in lot of inconvenience to the public at large, and it is the public which suffers. Now, with regard to infrastructure projects, again section 20B has been added, where provision has been made that the state government can establish or notify special courts to deal with such matters. Now, next important amendment is in section 20C, with a view to increase the credibility of the courts and the litigating public. What has been provided is that a suit filed under the provisions of this act, that is almost all the suits, most of the suits, they have to be decided within a period of 12 months. Of course, there is a provision that it can the period can be extended up to 6 months. That means within 1 year and 6 months, the suit will have to be decided. Now, remaining amendments in section 21, where the word in substitution has been omitted, then reference to the Arbitration Act of 1940 has been substituted with the Arbitration and Conciliation Act 1996. Then again in section 41HA, there is a prohibition that no injunction with regard to infrastructure project would be granted by the courts. So that's how we come to an end of this session. Let us hope and that you have a bird's eye view of the provisions of the Act, and thereafter examine it in detail, and I will look forward to your feedback so that I can also learn something. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a really informative session, and I must apologize. The Specific Relief Act is not just providing act in the case of specific performance only, but it's a much more, it's a very small act, and it's very useful act for all the lawyers. We have our viewers today, sir, and they have their questions as well. So they have asked many questions, but we have shortlisted some 6-7 questions only. Okay. So the first question is, sir.
To answer.
Yes, sir. So can a trespasser or illegal occupant file a suit under Section 6 of Specific Relief Act, and in that suit, a lawful owner a counterclaim to retain the position as a lawful owner?
Mr.
This question is by Ritesh Goyalji from Jaipur.
Your sound was not very clear. It broke.
Sir, I'll again repeat, sir. Okay, sir. Can a trespasser or illegal occupant file a suit under Section 6 of Specific Relief Act, and within that suit, can a lawful owner file a counterclaim so as to retain his position as a lawful owner?
See, this question is in two parts. First is whether an unauthorized occupant or a trespasser can file a suit under Section 6. If he is in settled possession and he has been forcibly dispossessed by the owner, he can file a suit. This is one part. That will be a summary suit. The plaintiff would be filing a suit simply on the basis of a possessory title, claiming that I was in settled possession. Settled possession means for a continuous sufficient long time he was in possession and he has been forcibly thrown out against law. If he files a suit, such suit would be maintainable and he can successfully claim restoration of the possession. Second part of the question is with regard to a counterclaim. I have my great doubt that in a summary suit, a counterclaim can be filed. If it is Section 6 suit, Order 8 would not be applicable, and in my impression is, I'm not very sure, therefore we'll have to check, but counterclaim in such suit may not be maintainable. Of course, the owner can file a suit, separate suit, and get it tagged with the summary suit and get the relief. But counterclaim in a summary suit would be a debatable question.
Okay, sir. So we'll move on to the next question, sir. In what circumstances time is the essence of contract in a suit for specific performance?
It's very, very important question, and I'm grateful to the person who has asked me. See, normally it is considered that a suit for specific performance with respect to immovable property, time is not the essence of the contract, as per a larger bench judgment in Chandrani's case, I think it's 85 Supreme Court. But with the passage of time, lot of judgments have been delivered by the Honorable Supreme Court and has said that since the prices increase very rapidly, therefore, if the language is that the contract will have to be performed within the specified time frame, that is within 6 months, 8 months, or 1 year, or by so and so date, then time is essence of the contract. Now, at this stage, if we say that time is not essence of the contract, that will be too much to say, and we will not be doing justice. There is one more thing which I would like to clarify. In a suit for specific performance of the agreement to sell or a contract, Article 54 of the Limitation Act is applicable, which is again in two parts. If the agreement to sell provides for a period for performance or a particular date, then the limitation for filing a suit begins from that day. The limitation is 3 years from the date. Suppose 30th May 2020 has been fixed as a date for performance. The period would begin to run, but there can be contracts where there is no period prescribed or no specified date has been specified for performance. If that is a situation, then second part of the Article 54 would govern. Then the limitation would begin to run only when the other party, or the plaintiff has a notice of its refusal. So that distinction must be kept in mind, because Article 54 is in two parts. I think I'm clear.
Right, okay. Sir. So the next question is by Shri Deepak Vashisht, advocate. He says, he's asking whether a suit for refund of earnest money without seeking specific performance of sale is maintainable.
Answer is yes, but with certain caveats. If person is filing a suit for refund, then he has to show that either he is not at fault, or there was some misrepresentation by the proposed vendor, or there is some defect in his title, or the property is under charge, or there is something else, or there was some misrepresentation, something like that. If that is the if he is able to show that the agreement to sell, at the time of agreement to sell, something was concealed, or there was defect in title, or it was in charge, the property was under a charge or encumbrance, then he can certainly file a suit for refund.
Right, sir. Next question is by Amit Goyal ji. He is asking whether the alternative relief of earnest money in a suit for possession through specific performance in any manner affects the main relief of specific performance in the suit.
Answer is straightway no. Now, here there were some judgments, but now the things have been clarified. Even that we have examined the statutory provisions, it specifically says so.
Right, sir. Next question is by Mr. Karan Lohia, advocate. He is asking what are the limit within which a court may permit rectification?
Rectification limits would be from the date the cause of action arise. All limitations would be governed by, it is not governed by this specific relief act. The limitation would begin to run from the date cause of action arises. Please understand, limitation has a relevance or a beginning point from the date the cause of action arises. So we will have to examine in each case. I can't in abstract answer that how it will be calculated, because cause of action would be the main thing. When the cause of action arises, and then the limitation would begin to run.
Right, sir. So the next question is by Mr. Gagandeep Makkad, advocate. He is asking who is the third party by whom the contract is to be performed as provided under section 20 subclause 1 of the amended act.
Just a minute, let me just see, because he's talking about section 20 subsection
subsection 1, sir.
Maybe there's a mistake.
There is some mistake, sir, through a third party.
Right, sir.
I need to examine, but I can't answer without examining it in detail.
Right, sir.
You can take his email or forward the question to me. I will examine it and then answer. That it will be better that I examine it and then answer. Okay.
We'll definitely do that, sir.
Right.
And the last question for the day is, sir, we have from Mr. Kamal Singh. He's from Faridabad. He is asking what would be the status of injunctions / orders obtained under Specific Relief Act subsequent to the initiation of insolvency and bankruptcy code proceedings. That's a very ticklish question.
I will have to pass it over, because unless I examine insolvency code, I can't answer.
That's right, sir.
Right.
Right. थैंक यू वेरी मच सर. अब मैं आमंत्रित करूंगा अपने उपाध्यक्ष महोदय श्री रविंदर बुधवार जी को कि वो आए और सर का थैंक्स करें.
मैं ऑनरेबल मिस्टर जस्टिस अनिल खेत्रपाल जी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं अपनी तरफ से और अधिवक्ता परिषद हरियाणा की तरफ से. उन्होंने ये चीज इतनी सिंपल भाषा में बता दी कि ये जो स्पेसिफिक रिलीफ एक्ट है ये तो मदर ऑफ लिटिगेशन है, और 90% सूट एज पर टुडेज टॉपिक आर टू बी फाइल्ड इन द स्पेसिफिक रिलीफ एक्ट. मेरे हिसाब से 90% वकील इस चीज को नहीं जानते थे. हर चीज का सूट, किसी भी चीज का स्पेसिफिक परफॉर्मेंस, पोजेशन, कैंसिलेशन, डिक्लेरेशन, इंजंक्शंस, ऑल सूट्स आर टू बी फाइल्ड अंडर स्पेसिफिक रिलीफ एक्ट. और इस एक्ट को इतनी सिंपल भाषा में एलोबरेट किया है कि हर श्रोता को इस चीज पे बड़ी नॉर्मल जैसे नॉर्मल डिलीजेंस का पर्सन भी इस चीज को समझ चुका होगा भी हमने दावे में कैसे क्या क्या चीज लिखनी है। और इस सेशन के लिए और हमारी इस एक्सेप्टेंस के लिए मैं ऑनरेबल मिस्टर जस्टिस अनिल खेत्रपाल का दोबारा फिर धन्यवाद करता हूँ।
थैंक यू फॉर पेशेंटली लिसनिंग मी। थैंक यू
वेरी मच सर। एंड मैं अपने यूजर्स को बता दूं कि हम दोबारा सेम किसी एक लेक्चर के साथ अपना दोबारा से आएंगे, और ये सीरीज अभी खत्म नहीं हुई है। साथ ही साथ कोरोना काल में जिस हिसाब से अभी तक केसेस बढ़ रहे हैं, तो मैं अब सबसे यही आग्रह करूंगा कि आप सब अपने घर पर रहें, सेफ रहें, और पीएम केयर्स फंड में या फिर सीएम रिलीफ फंड में डोनेशन करते रहें। आप सभी का धन्यवाद। नमस्कार।